No need to move the camera. Pictures come to it. Gather, Fuller advises, facts regarding human needs and world resources. Place in computer memory bank. Update continuously. Join team of programmers competing to find speediest peaceful means for giving each world inhabitant what's needed for his kind of living. Videoized solution on football field-sized geodesic world map. So fact continuously changing intelligent solution of world game exists, becomes via TV, household knowledge. A study was made with computer to find out where in the world wealthy Americans prefer to retire. They retire, computer tells us, to Cuernavaca in Mexico, a hill town near Nairobi in Kenya, and someplace or other in Nepal. The goal is not to have a goal. The new university will have no limits. It will not be in any special place. Having returned, as Fuller puts it, to his studies, teacher will be flying all over the world and even out into space. Questions I might have learned to ask him can no longer be answered. Waiting in the hotel in Rio de Janeiro to hear whether or not I was to meet with the people who were studying anarchy. They had come in their studies to Thoreau, and having heard that I was enjoying Thoreau's journal, had asked me to share with them my thoughts. Telephone didn't ring. Act of sharing is a community act. Think of people outside the community. What do we share with them? Teacher played hooky, sent message, receiving instruction, enjoying myself thoroughly. See you next week. LeJaron Hiller's computer music project, fantastic orchestra, each sound to be a plurality of vibratory circumstances, known or not known in nature. Impossible made possible. Fuller, nothing's artificial. It exists, it is natural. How do you manage to live with just one shirt? Before going to bed, I take a shower with my shirt still on. Afterward, I scrub the cuffs and collar with my electric toothbrush. Then I turn on the TV, hang my shirt on it. Best place I've found to dry it. Years ago, zoological gardens began to get rid of wire fences, substituting means that decreased the sense of separation between animal and man. Coming back from the Junior Museum of Natural History in Sacramento, Billy Burton told me children now make applications for checking animals out. It took 6 weeks to teach the computer how to toss 3 coins 6 times. Somewhat worried, I tossed coins manually to discover from the I Ching how I Ching felt about being programmed. It was delighted. I Ching promised quantitative increase of benefits for culture. What we've already done conspires against what we have now to do. Advice to Brazilian anarchists: improved telephone system. Without telephoning, merely starting revolution will be impossible. Pinkville. Charles Peck, New York State botanist, spent most of his life with no place to work but a dark hallway. Just before he died, the government gave him a room with a window. Catechess, up around 9 or 10, coffee, off by boat to a cove where no others are, white wine, almonds, olives, chess, swimming, dominoes, back in town by 1 or 2 for lunch with him. He had not been with us. Feared plan'd fail. No one wanted to get deeply involved. However, it worked. When disaster was imminent, people rose to occasion, did whatever was necessary to keep the thing going. Reminder, not a revelation. He'd have preferred silence to applause at the end, art instead of slap in the face. Whispered truths. Looking for something irrelevant, I found I couldn't find it. Wild, as if we lived on marrow of antelopes, devoured raw, thorough. Wanting to make some easy money, he took to cracking safes, was caught, put in penitentiary. While ill in the prison hospital, he had an affair with middle-aged nurse. When he was released from penitentiary, nurse introduced him to a beautiful young girl whom he married. His bride immediately inherited $3 million. College, 200 people reading same book. An obvious mistake. 200 people can read 200 books. Clothes I wear for mushroom hunting are rarely sent to the cleaner. They constitute a collection of odors I produce and gather while rambling in the woods. I notice not only dogs, cats too are delighted. They love to smell me. Vacaville, spent the evening with a murderer. I asked him why he drank so much coffee. He said there's nothing else to do. University, which now embraces studies formerly excluded from it, such as home economics, music, and physical education, has sister universities abroad, belongs to consortium of universities here, includes a free university. What's adumbrated's indistinct from society itself. Not a community of scholars living like monks, but society which works for any kind of living, any kind of attention placement, any activity. Something seems beautiful. Wittgenstein, you mean it clicks? When things don't click, take clicker from your pocket and click it. Death. Process involving Christmas trees takes place each year. Christmas trees that are grown in Hawaii are sent by freighter to be sold on the West Coast. Christmas trees that are grown on the West Coast are sent by freighter to be sold in Hawaii. Ready or not, we are being readied. Complete checkup, I was more examined than ever before. Doctors report, "You're very well, except for your illnesses." John McHale, "It has taken the history of mankind to produce the articles we have around us, the match, the computer. It is essential to see one sector of population isn't servicing another. We are all using the same materials simultaneously. Information storage never depletes. Ability to reuse materials makes us, after all these centuries, quite skillful. Impatience. Why do you have one TV set on top of the other? The bottom one doesn't work." There were 52 tapes. We had to combine them for a single recording. We went to a studio where they could record 8 at a time. When we had 17 together, it sounded like chamber music. When we had 34 together, it sounded like orchestral music. When we had 52 together, it didn't sound like anything we'd ever heard before. Milarepa, London publisher sent blank, fill out, so I'd be included in survey of contemporary poets of the English language, threw it out. Week later, urgent request plus duplicate blank arrived. Please return with the glossy photo. Complied. July, August, September. Publisher then sent letter saying it had been decided I'm not significant poet after all. If I were, everyone else would be one too. Used to say, never the twain shall meet. Now we don't hesitate to fight Oriental wars. There's no doubt about usefulness of Oriental thought for Western mind. Same's true for utopia. Its impracticality is no longer to be assumed. Everything's changed. Develop facilities that remove need for middlemen. Soup cans are not only beautiful, Warhol, for example, but true. Camel's soup is actually in them. They're also constant reminders of spiritual presence. I am with you always. Function fulfilled by images of the Virgin Mary along a path is now also fulfilled by the public telephone. Instead of lighting a candle, we insert a dime and dial. Computer mistake is grade giving resulted in academic failure of several brilliant students. After some years, the mistake was discovered. Letter was then sent to each student inviting him to resume his studies. Each replied he was getting along very well without education. Buddha reclines on his right side. So does the lion. How thorough he is. He told me his secrets. Town is very small, well organized. Nothing can be found in it. An idea was given to them because they didn't have one. The Seychelles. Cloth calendars for kitchen walls designed by Lois Long are sold throughout the USA. Some years ago, Lois made one by mistake, giving 2 different dates to a single day. Thursday, November 31st, was also Thursday, December 1st. The calendar was very successful. Discipline, disciple, giving up one's country, all that's dear to one's country, leave thy father and mother, yoga, yoke, taming of the globe, open, in and out. Einstein wrote to Freud to say men should stop having wars. Freud wrote back to say, if you get rid of war, you'll also get rid of love. Freud was wrong. What permits us to love one another and the earth we inhabit is that we and it are impermanent. We obsolesce. Life's everlasting. Individuals aren't. A mushroom lasts for only a very short time. Often I go in the woods thinking after all these years I ought finally to be bored with fungi. But coming upon just any mushroom in good condition, I lose my mind all over again. Supreme good fortune. We're both alive. Things governments wish to divide between us belong to all of us. The land, for instance, beneath the oceans. People speak of literacy, but I, for one, can't read or write any computer language. Only numbers I know are those based on 10. I'm uneducated. Home in Wayzata, Minnesota is very much like a home near Sitges, just south of Barcelona. Now we're itinerant. There's no reason to go on, for instance, picking fruit. Since we live longer, Margaret Mead says, we can change what we do. We can stop whatever it was we promised we'd always do and do something else. He is one of my closest friends. He asked me for help. I gave it. He couldn't use it. TV guide tells what's going on, doesn't tell what we're obliged to look at. Where you are limits what channels you can receive. Hearing sounds before they're audible is not the way to hear them. Imitate the telephones of your homes and highways, their indifference. They aren't displeased when the person speaking is black. They aren't pleased when the person speaking is black. When lady in charge of university concerts asked what music day was to be called, I replied, "Goddamn Music Day." She was delighted. Her husband, also affiliated with university, but in its legal aspects, wasn't. Profanity is forbidden. Nothing can be printed that might come to the governor's notice. Duchamp asked whether he believed in God. No. God is man's stupidest idea. Traveling from one place to another, we confine ourselves to the roads. That's why, of course, we feel so populated. We're too choosy about the space we use. Guests had left before going to bed. While reading a book he'd bought that morning, he chuckled. 10 minutes later, brushing his teeth, he died. Whole earth. We connect sati with Thoreau. 11th thunderclap. 1928. Walter loved the Chinese, hated communists. He couldn't bear the Japanese. Fortunately for Uncle, he died before the tables turned. Mushroom, leaf, back's ache. If we had immortal life, but we don't, it'd be reasonable to do as we do now, spend our time killing one another. Chadwick, gardener at Santa Cruz. Nabid said, "You must meet our wizard." Chadwick's back, Nabi told me, had been injured in war, but when we went mushrooming with his student helpers, Chadwick, half naked, leapt and ran like a pony. Catching up with him, it was joy and poetry I heard him speak. But while I listened, he noticed some distant goal across and down the fields, and shouting something I couldn't understand, because he'd already turned away, he was gone. Students had defected from the university, or had come especially from afar to work with him like slaves. They slept unsheltered in the woods. After the morning's hunt with him and them, I thought, these people live, others haven't even been born. It was not quite midnight. Duchamp was waiting for us in the street. He looked for all the world like a handsome young man. Want list of communes, places where Americans live who've given up dependence on power and possessions? Write to Alternatives Foundation, 2441 LeConte Avenue, Berkeley, California, 94709. Or to Carlton Collective Communities, Clearinghouse, Northfield, Minnesota, 55057. Futures no longer a secret. Murderer asked, "What time is it?" 9:00. 5 minutes later, he repeated his question. "What time is it?" 5 minutes after 9. 10. She had problem children. Their grades were so poor they couldn't enter college. I told her to stop worrying about them. She did. They've turned out beautifully. One married a Californian, has 2 fine sons, paints beautifully. Tucker's automobile expertise is in demand. Talked about fact writing's less and less attractive. Picking up the pen, one knows ideas already entertained in other minds. Pen becomes absent. Sword'll follow suit. Flower's sermon. In the plane, ready for last leg of flight to Yucatan, he'd flown from Berkeley, I from Palermo in Sicily. Grounded by fog, we remained in Mexican plain 3 hours, which, with subsequent flight, gave me time to read Stent's typescript of his book, The Coming of the Golden Age. When questions come to mind, I simply put them to the author, completely satisfied. How do you propose, Fuller was asked, to accomplish this without involvement in political action? His answer, the world game provides an apolitical option, a solution no one's forced to accept. When, however, you want it, you'll be able, since you know it exists, to use it. Puppy was eating his vomit. That's one thing his mistress said we don't do. Picked him up, put him outside, resumed her conversation. No one cleaned up the mess. An elderly Viennese lady, whose principal pleasure was listening to music, was alarmed because she thought she was losing her hearing. She went to the doctor. He discovered her ears were full of wax. He removed it very easily. Man living in the Ojai knew how to manage unsheltered. But, hungry, he devised a plan that worked. To subtly change his environment in terms of its seductiveness to picnickers, so that coming upon it, picnickers feel they'd made a discovery of the ideal place to eat. He lived for years on food they left behind. Busy signal in the telephone system sometimes means person one's callings, talking to someone else. Sometimes busy signal means someone else is trying to reach very same person you're trying to reach. This creates a problem. Solution: 2 different types of busy signals. If at some moment, person we're trying to reach being called before by someone else answers, genuine busy signal rings. Presidential platform. Promise, elected or not, to go on with my work, not bothering about you, to remove laws, to extend unlimited credit throughout society, regardless of nationality. Observing distinctions, race distinctions, side with underdog, learning from him who was oppressed, to live outside the law, not committing crimes. Become slave to all there is. No need to become king. Siding with noises, musicians discovered duration's impartiality. What corresponds in society to sound's parameter of duration? Vacation, this is ours. Don't just do your thing. Do so many things no one will know what you're going to do next. Add video screen to telephone. Give each subscriber 1,000 sheets of recordable, erasable material, so anytime, anywhere, anyone would have access to 1,000 sheets of something, drawings, books, music, whatever. You just dial. If you dial the wrong number, instead of uselessly disturbing another subscriber, you just get surprising information, something unexpected. Statement by Stulman, manufacturer, distributor of lumber products, founder, president of the World Institute. The question before us is whether we will so organize the processes for gathering and applying knowledge that the creative powers of all men can be catalyzed for growth toward wholeness, or whether we will persist in our egocentric, ethnocentric, fact-accumulating, thing-oriented, power-amassing ways that are leading us to destruction. Looking out the window in the forest, illuminated surfaces in the house that aren't in the forest are seen in the forest 3D in color. hand that's placed on TV is placed at the same time outside on the tree. The showers in the room, not confined to a cubicle. On the opposite walls, a mirror. Steam from the hot water produces the slow disappearance of one's image. Pleasure of having a body, waiting for the gift from me to me of death. Assassination of Martin Luther King. Apocalypse. They have homes, but they don't have the idea. Keep out. Languages separate people. Images, TV, highway signs, trademarks, film, bring them together. Going to the moon, we speak in numbers. A year has passed. We pretend we can get along without him. For 3 or 4 years, Igor Stravinsky was treated for a malady his doctors thought he had. When, at death's door, Stravinsky's hands turned black, the doctors concluded a mistake had been made. That's unknown brings mushroom and leaf together. Ego dethroned. In the course of being provided with false teeth, Thoreau took ether. You are, he wrote, told that it will make you unconscious, but no one can imagine what it is to be unconscious until he has experienced it. If you have an inclination to travel, take, he advised, the ether. You go beyond the farthest star. We know from a variety of experiences that if we have a sufficiently large number of things, some or even many of them can be bad, but the sum total is good for the simple reason, say, that not all of the things in it are good. Found, page 74, in a book by Cassirer. It is speech itself which prepares the way whereby it is itself transcended. From navigation to aviation. Fuller, renounce water as sanitation means, adopt compressed air, following lead of dentists. Bits of hair and skin floating in the air with pollen, seeds and spores from plants, out of water, into air, and back to earth. I asked Xenakis, what's wrong with the USA? He was quiet for a moment and then said, too much power. Put 'em who threaten possessions and power, together with them who offend our tastes in sex and dope. Those who are touched, put 'em in asylums. Pack off old ones to senior communities, nursing homes. Children, keep 'em prisoner, babysitter as warden. School, 15 to 20 years. Army afterward. Liberated, we live in prison. Know this, know that. Kill us before we die. We have no icons. We believe what we do. Telephone conversation turned toward politics. Mrs. Emmons said she was certain what the government was doing was right. Beverly said, How do you figure that? Her mother replied, well, this is a Christian country. We leave food offerings for person who makes next telephone call, no matter who he is. Thus we transform highway telephone booth into wayside shrine. I don't believe, Duchamp said, in the verb to be. I do not believe that I am. Commune problem. Communes are filled with gurus, needing, not having others to guru. But teaching's part and parcel of divisive society we're leaving. Thoreau. My seniors have told me nothing, probably can tell me nothing to the purpose. Davis. Don't know what we're studying. Don't know how we'll do it. Studied map. Should have taken road not on it. Went off to the left. Reprogramming. Jack Mackenzie's proposal. Set up alternative university program, freeing a student from all curriculum responsibilities. Let him elect his studies. When he leaves, give him, instead of degree, certificate telling what he did while in school. Looking at the sunset, Brown noticed part of its beauty is caused by air pollution. Day after the assassination, human beings sitting at the table next to mine wanted to speak to him, didn't have the right. As we left the valley to enter the desert, I gave up all thought of finding mushrooms, but for some reason we stopped along the road. There, underneath the pepper trees, I found Tricholoma personatum, excellent in quantity. The poor, where do they go to retire? Takilma, Oregon, America's third poorest town. Nothing to do. Free jam, peanut butter, staples. Have 2 children. Government will give you $240 a month. Money comes through the mail. Slight irritations make life sufficiently interesting to live are provided by visits of welfare worker whose assignment is Takilma. Takilma's beautiful. Problem in Takilma, boredom. People often together sitting around talking. Let them close their mouths, open their eyes and ears, spend day in different directions, seeking world around or in 'em, returning to one another in the evening, ventilating, provision for changes in schedule. She brought him food. Clairvoyant, he knew it was poisonous. 3rd time she offered him deadly food. He accepted it, but himself appointed the hour of his death. Religious tract David Tudor gave me, Christ International. Train is made up of engine, coal car, caboose. Engine is fact, coal car's faith, caboose is feeling. Train can run with or without feeling. Caboose can't make train run. After breakfast, he offered her a cigarette. She said, "No, thank you." He said, "What's wrong? Have you stopped smoking?" She said, "Yes." Next day he stopped too. That was Nobby and Beth 10 years ago. I've learned to say no to those I don't know. Learned to say no to some of those I know. Example of underdevelopment of religious spirit. Edwin Schlossberg and Buckminster Fuller gave 6 weeks comprehensive design science course at the New York Studio School. I was invited to the last meeting. There were about 22 students. The first thing Bucky said was that the young people sitting around the table had sufficient intelligence to run the world, to solve all of world problems. Glancing at the students, I was skeptical. They looked like a bunch of hippies with some older oddballs thrown in. But while they spoke, did as I do at the movies, when it's clear everything will turn out all right, I wept. Fuller would have said, "You sleep too much." All God's religions and all his servants, lawmakers, philosopher kings, saints, artists, have not been able to put mankind back together again. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. We've got the automobile. No sense in leading horses around. Let 'em go where they will. Fix it so if they're thirsty, there's something for 'em to drink. Earth's the way to heaven. There's no mystery about it. Don't change man, Fuller. Change his environment. Humanities, save them for your spare time. Concentrate on the utilities. In anything experienced nowadays, there is much that is true, much that is false. Proofreading. Chadwick described magnetic effect of moon on tides, on germination of seeds. Moon inclining draws mushrooms out of earth. We talked of current disturbance of ecology, agreed man's works, no matter how great, are pygmy compared with those of nature. Nature pressed will respond with grand and shocking adjustment of creation. Out of ourselves with a little o, into ourselves with a big O. Reunion. Received month's check. Paid bills. Went to farmer's market. Economy. Returned at 6, having spent last penny on turkey and all the trimmings. Friends arrived at midnight for Thanksgiving in the spring. Cared for us day in, day out, rest of the month.